The Yankees stood on and they handled business in the Bronx again, and because of that, they took a 2-0 ALCS lead over the Guardians. So let's talk about how hashtag RepBX is repping the BX big time with New York Post Sports baseball writer and reporter Dan Martin. Dan, what's going on, man? Already out in Cleveland. Book that flight. You ready for Game 3, huh? How you feeling, man?
I'm good, Brandon. How you doing?
All's well, man. It's a great time to be a Yankee fan. Great time, great vibes around the city right now. This is the first time that they've had a 2-0 lead in the ALCS since 2009. So let's get your thoughts on another instant classic, also known as Game 2.
You know, there might be some argument about whether it was an instant classic or not. It was a kind of a rough one to sit through for some of it, but not for a Yankee fan because, look, they've gotten the job done for most of the season. And since October started, they've gotten some favorable opponents, but they've done the job every time. And Game 2 is a perfect example of that. They didn't get a great start out of Cole. They didn't take advantage of all of their opportunities on the bases, but they did enough to win. And they had some really good signs, encouraging signs for going forward. So they're obviously in a great spot going into Game 3 here in Cleveland, and just 2 games away from the World Series. So yeah, things are pretty good with the Yankees. They can't have any complaints.
And one of those encouraging signs, as you just mentioned, was Aaron Judge hitting his first home run of the postseason. That 2-run shot, or I'm gonna ask you, was that 2-run shot the shot that will officially unlock hashtag all rise for the rest of the playoffs?
You know, there's only Aaron Judge can know that for sure. But we've seen throughout his career how streaky he can be, and just as easily as he goes into one of these terrible funks during the regular season, he breaks out of it in a way that nobody else can. So we've talked a lot about the postseason struggles that have haunted him and the Yankees really since 2018, but he also had a streak during the regular season this past year when he didn't look like he'd ever get another hit. And he burst out of it and wound up with 58 home runs. So there's no reason to think that, one swing of the bat can get him going, one intentional walk to Juan Soto to get to Judge, which happened last night, can get him going. So, it's another reason for the Yankees to feel confident because they've gotten this far with very little contribution from Aaron Judge. And if he gets rolling, there's no telling what the Yankees will do.
Dan, let's say they win this series, go to the World Series, but he continues to struggle. What would his legacy be?
He's still got a long way to go in his career, but the questions would persist. It's been a long time since he's had a really good postseason. So perhaps this home run gets him started, gets him rolling into the World Series. But the Yankees say it's a narrative, that's made too much of by the media. But it's a real thing. His numbers just have not been good for any player, let alone for one of the best hitters in the history of the game in October. So if he's not able to get it going in the World Series and they win, you know what? I'm sure he'll take it, but it's going to be a lot harder for them to do so. So they've got their fingers crossed that last night's home run gets him started, gets him back to where he was for most of the regular season. And if that's the case, then they're even more of a favorite than they already are, certainly in this series and maybe in the World Series as well if they get there.
Yeah, I'm hoping he gets it going because I played with a guy of Eli Manning, 2-time Super Bowl champ, who came alive in the playoffs, and because of that, he's on the Mount Rushmore when it comes to New York sports. So I'm a big all-rise guy, so hopefully that turned him on and has got him going. I read your article on the NewYorkPost.com/sports for something to keep an eye on when it comes to Austin Wells. He went hitless again Tuesday, and now he's 0 for 19 throughout the playoffs. If he can't get out of this funk, what changes do you think Aaron Boone's going to make at that cleanup spot?
He might swap Anthony Rizzo up there because Rizzo is another key addition that the Yankees, now that he's back from the fractured fingers in his right hand. He's looked pretty good in the 2 games that he's played. Another left-handed bat that could easily go into the cleanup spot behind Judge and move Wells down. But Aaron Boone has been reluctant to do that. Wells is caught well, which is really what they're more worried about. And if they're winning, you might not want to change the lineup too much. But certainly, it's not great to have your cleanup hitter producing absolutely nothing. And now they do have an alternative in Rizzo, who's taking walks, driving the ball. He had a double. He looks pretty good, especially for a guy who didn't play for 16 days after he got hit by a pitch. So I think, if Aaron Boone wants to do something, there's no panic, obviously, up 2-0 going into Game 3. But that's a change they could make. And obviously, Rizzo's got a ton of experience both in the playoffs and in the cleanup spot. So he wouldn't be affected by that move at all. And maybe it takes some pressure off of Wells. So that's something that they could do. But, really, they can do whatever they please going into Game 3. They've got a good rotation lined up with Schmidt and Heel going in 3 and 4, and the Guardians are scrambling for pitchers. So, they've got a lot of leeway here to do what they want to do.
Yeah, you look at what Aaron Boone did with Gleyber Torres when he was struggling. He stuck with him. He benched him for those 2 games, but he pretty much stuck with him. And now you see young Gleyber Torres out here balling in the postseason. So hopefully Austin Wells can start playing well to keep this run going. All right, Dan, you're up 2-0. You guys are already out in Cleveland. How do the Yankees keep rocking and rolling out in the rock and roll capital of the world for games 3, 4, and maybe 5?
They've had a ton of success against AL Central teams, and they already beat the Royals to get this far. They've beaten the Guardians a ton in October, and the Cleveland has a terrible rotation right now. They've been hit with injuries, so the Yankees have them just where they want them. Anything can happen this time of year, obviously, but there's no reason to think that the Yankees can't close out the series in Cleveland, like you said, either in 4 games or 5 games. If they go back to the Bronx, we'll see what happens. But they've got their hands on the throat of the Cleveland, and if Aaron Judge gets going, if Gleyber Torres, like you said, keeps hitting, I don't see how they can be stopped, at least in this round, because they haven't played their best, and they're still up 2-0. And, I don't think there's anything you can complain about.
Yeah, it's right there for the taking. In the words of Michael Strahan, stomp him out. Finish him. Dan, thanks for hopping on with us.
No problem, Brandon.